Morning all. So, we got a news of the day video here for your October 29th as we get closer to Halloween. Kind of weird to have a Halloween without the NHL, but hey, I'm going to have some fun with that on Saturday. So, and I do intend to have a live stream at some point today. I'm not sure of the exact time. We have some family stuff going on, so I'll let you guys know. Which means check the community tab once we figure out a time. I'll post on the community tab. Since it's going to be on the PlayStation, you're not going to get notified. It doesn't send notifications on this channel. It does on the Entertainment Guy, but not on this channel. I don't know why, but it doesn't. Now, Rick Bowness announced today will officially stay on as coach, and he cites the team having unfinished business. So, it was a no-brainer for the Stars. It was said during the Stanley Cup playoffs, I think it was the conference final, that Jim Nill came out and said it's his job if he wants it. So he wants it. He's sticking around. And you could see during the playoffs that Rick Bowness was having a lot of fun. I can't remember the last time I saw him that engaged behind the bench, that happy as a head coach. And I think that says a lot about how he bonded with the players and the players bonded with him. And it works. So I'm really glad he's sticking around. That was a tragedy, the way that Montgomery goes and all of that. But now it's worked out pretty well. Montgomery has a job in the NHL again, and Bowness and the Stars had a nice run out of it. So sometimes you get happy endings in 2020. It can happen. The OHL has announced they're starting February 5th, and they're going to have a 40-game schedule. So they've pushed their season back. They had December 4th as their start date. It'll be February 5th. And it sounds like that's pretty standard date. So, they have a while, which means that for players who are looking for something to do until February 5th, they'll probably have some options, but it depends on your skill level, what kind of options you're going to have. There's going to be a lot of junior kids that aren't, draft likely, who I'm not sure what you do. I don't know. Do you go to your local rink and skate around, keep your skills going? Do you play street hockey and floor hockey and hope that, your skating and everything is still, or do you skate and then you do the street hockey and then, I don't know. Especially, for the guys who might be on the cusp, like they might get drafted, might not. And if this is your last year of draft eligibility, just the amount of stress that you'd be going through right now, I can't imagine for those kids. So while we focus a lot on, the millionaires and multimillionaires in the NHL and how much money they make, the kids and juniors this year and the kids in some of the European leagues as well, who may get pushed down further by the fact that NHL level players are getting sent over by NHL teams that want them to stay in shape. They have a lot of challenges this year. So, here's to hoping that they have they find a way to have a decent year and it doesn't hurt their development too much. Hey, everybody remember Svechnikov's lacrosse goal? The lacrosse goal was 1 year ago today. So that was when Carolina fans collectively said, this is the guy. Hey, did you see the goal? Hey, did you see it? Hey, did you see it? Hey, Shannon didn't talk up the goal enough. Did you watch the review last night? Yeah, Shannon didn't talk up the goal enough. He needs to talk about it some more. He needs to recreate the Svech goal in his parking lot or something. No, I'm not going to try to do that. But yeah, the lacrosse goal was a year ago today, and the legend was born. Victor Olofsson. This came through while I was making up the board. He has signed a 2-year deal with the Buffalo Sabres worth $3.05 million a year. Again, due to the flat cap, due to the ongoing uncertainty economically, both teams and players are doing bridge contracts where usually they wouldn't. And it might be in the best interest of the Sabres. When it comes to really long contracts, they have kind of a spotty record with some of that. So 2 years, what this does is it leaves them with $3.495 million in cap space. So the Sabres have room to bring somebody else in should they choose to. And we'll see what they do. Now that Olofsson's signed, all the big players are signed. If they want to go out and pick up somebody else in free agency, they can. $3.495 million won't get you Hoffman, but they might be able to move around a little bit of money to bring in Hoffman if they wanted to. I would think in that cap-friendly total, Kyle Okposo's contract's probably in there, so he's probably getting it back in the minors. That frees up another $1 million. There's ways to get it done, not necessarily ways that are going to make fans all excited, or the owner. So the Pagulas might be less excited, but this is nice to see that Olofsson's going to stick around, and we're avoiding a lot of the drama with RFAs this year. That being said, Matthew Barzal, got to get a signing out of there, and Sergachev, we need a signing out of there as well. An interesting article as well on Colin Wilson. So Colin Wilson was a highly thought of prospect. And he was a highly thought of prospect that before he reached the National Hockey League, he was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. OCD, that's the thing that people just make fun of. People just casually, that's my OCD kicking in. It can be crippling. OCD can be absolutely crippling to a person's life. And I'm very grateful that while I'm OCD about certain things, I don't have that crippling aspect of my life, and he did. To the point where he goes to doctors and they're prescribing him various medications. And he has said that the medications and his OCD definitely impacted his career. He does not believe that he'll ever play hockey again in the National Hockey League. So that's too bad. And it's one of those things where we always sort of expect hockey players to be superhumans, and whatever's going on off the ice, just put it out of your head and just go out there and play. Well, if you're OCD, it's possible that it could be triggered by something on the ice, and it's also not so easy to push everything else off the ice out of your mind while you're playing a game. So here's to hoping for the best for Colin Wilson, and hopefully his story helps somebody else. That's always the key thing. Hopefully his story will help somebody else who's going through that same thing. And I know it's very common. People just don't talk about it. It's one of those things where mental health you don't talk about because there's this shame thing that happens with mental health issues. I don't understand it, but it's out there. I thought this was interesting that Devan Dubnyk is already talking about, and maybe they asked him this because he said it before the original bubble. No bubbles. He hates bubbles. I picture him at birthday parties, and if there's a bubble blower, he's like, I'm out of here. I do not like bubbles. There will be no, he's probably telling his kids, there will be no bubbles in this house. None. I detest bubbles. So he's talking again about how they aren't going to do a bubble situation, and he said other sports haven't done it. And I thought, baseball had a modified bubble for their playoffs. And we've seen how many positive cases there have been in the NFL. There's another one with the Chargers today. So, all right, there's another team that's going to end up probably having to change their schedule around. So it's had mixed results, especially, in the U.S., right? In Europe, it's been pretty good. Mostly the KHL, of course, almost crippled by an outbreak at one point, the SHL dealing. But again, there may be a modified situation like that this year. We know this. Dubnyk may very well say, forget it. The interesting thing to me is that Stalock was the starter for Minnesota. Jones is the starter in San Jose. So I don't know. I don't know how much Dubnyk plays this year anyways, and it is to me entertaining that I was talking about Devan Dubnyk in the news of the day before the NHL's return and how much he hated the idea of a bubble and he was thinking about not going. Then he did go, and now he's saying, no, we're not going. Players shouldn't sign up for this. And players have said it as well, but one other aspect of this was players saying, there have been about there's 7 teams of players that didn't play in the return at all, and they're going to have been off the ice for almost a full year. So the longer they're off the ice, the more likely they are to pressure the other guys to say, you know what, let's accept some modified bubble and go back to work. We're going to hear a lot about it over the next couple of months, is my guess. And this came out yesterday too, and so we'll just throw it in here. Oliver Ekman-Larsson has come out and said he never wanted to get traded by the Arizona Coyotes. Now, if you're surprised by this, you're not paying attention. Oliver Ekman-Larsson and his agent never came out and said he wants out. They said less about wanting out than Laine's agents have about Laine leaving Winnipeg, and yet I don't think Laine's getting moved either. So Oliver Ekman-Larsson never wanted to be traded. We knew this. Did the Canucks work hard to try to bring him in? Maybe, probably. There's a lot of talk about it. This is one of those things where people will say, well, Benning worked really hard on trying to bring him in. What are you basing that on? We weren't in the room. So we did hear reports that the Canucks were trying to bring in Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Look at the cap hell they're in. They couldn't have even tried to bring him in unless they were able to move money out. And clearly they weren't able to do that. And they were also trying to keep Markstrom at the same time. That's part of the reason. And then people will say, well, that's why they weren't contacting Tanev and they weren't contacting Stetcher. It feels like they weren't interested in keeping Stetcher around anyways. So I don't know that OEL necessarily makes anything different there. Tanev, they had just very basic conversations with him, and it doesn't sound like they had a great interest in keeping him around either. The Canucks needed to revamp their defense. We knew this after seeing how they played during the regular season and then how they played during the postseason. Their goaltending needing to steal victories while saving 40, 45, 50 shots. That's not a formula that wins. So you have to look at the defense, the actual players on the ice, and say, we need to change this. So I know we get emotionally attached to players, but in trying to go after OEL and being willing to lose other defensemen, it's the Canucks way of saying, we know we need to change the blue line. So OEL not wanting to be traded doesn't surprise me. He did say he was willing to waive for those teams because he was willing to go there, but he really didn't want to. So him not necessarily wanting to be traded, it's again interesting that he comes out and says it, and he said it to a Swedish paper. I always find this interesting too, and it seems to happen in the offseason more than anything. The players will give interviews in their home countries in their native language, and then it's almost like they don't expect anybody to be able to translate it into English. Because how many times have we seen where there's something that's said and we go, wow, that guy said that, and it's in another language. I guess then they could come out and go, it wasn't translated very well. That's not really what I meant. So, yeah, I think it's really not a story at this point, because even if the Canucks had wanted to keep Tanev and Stetcher, if they had done that, they wouldn't have been able to bring in Nate Schmidt. And there you go. Anyways, 46 players have been invited to Team Canada's training camp, which will start on November 16th. Keep in mind, the games don't start until Christmas Day, and Team Canada themselves will be playing Germany on Boxing Day. Yes, I intend to be covering the World Junior Championships this year. And I've mildly covered them before, but usually just in this kind of format and not really in any kind of depth. So this year will definitely be more in depth because we won't likely have hockey until it might be February, it could be January. So towards the end of December, yep, I'll be watching some hockey and seeing what happens with the World Junior Championship. Because even though it starts on Christmas Day, we're not having the big Christmas family thing this year. That's not going to happen. Which is sad, but the way I see it is hopefully it means a bigger Christmas celebration next year. So, go all out next year. Just get through this year, through 2020, and then in 2021, then we can, deal with it as is. And I don't think we'll be the only ones that aren't having a normal Christmas day. So it'll be nice to have some hockey. I'll do a live stream that day as well. The Christmas live stream is standard. I think this year it might be more necessary than in previous years. And so there we go. We will see how this Team Canada training camp works out, which players they end up picking, and just how good a team they can put together, because a lot of guys who should be in the NHL right now playing, well, they're not. So they'll be able to play in the World Junior Championships where they otherwise wouldn't have been there. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.